Kevin Welsh, why should anyone consider setting up a chatbot?
Hey, Martin, that's a great question. So, it wasn't that long ago, if you think about it, when the question would have been, why should somebody build a website, right? I have a Yellow Pages ad, my phone number is out there everywhere. Who is going to look up my site, right? And the assumption was people are at work during the day and they're not looking for me at night. And that's a silly question today. And I think we're approaching the tipping point where most companies, it's going to make the same amount of sense to have a chatbot that it did to have a site in at the end of the 90s.
What does it give us?
Yeah, so I mean, it gives us a ton of things, right? I think one is, a chatbot functions as a concierge. So somebody comes to your site, and assuming you've got dozens of pages and a lot of content, they don't have the time or the interest to comb through every page on your site. Usually they're there with a question, and they prefer to ask that question than to click individual words that represent your navigation menu to try to find the answer to their question, right? And when you search, the problem there is there's typically tons of search results, not just one. And it's a very distracting kind of experience, right? When you put you on somebody's page, they're fighting for promotional material, branding material, and they can't just answer direct questions unless you put a person there. And then most of us know that if you're going to get in the queue for a human resource, you're going to have to wait. So yeah. I think the other big advantage to the chatbot is it's relatively immediate, it's conversational, it's very linear, so you don't get lost, and you get good answers to questions if it's a good bot.
Kevin Welsh, it's great to have you on this show, and we're going to talk more about chatbot, but please just introduce yourself.
Absolutely, Martin. Thanks for having me. This is Kevin Welsh. I'm the owner of Welsh Technologies. We launched in 2004, doing web and software development for companies of all sizes. I also own a high-end digital audio company. We manufacture network streamers, which are the modern day CD players, if you will. And that company's called Musica Pristina. And we do a mix at Welsh Technologies. We do a mix of web and software development, Microsoft 365 implementations. And the topic today, we do chatbots.
I think it's important for us to distinguish the difference between chat and a chatbot.
Right. So chat is, you go on Facebook Messenger or Skype, and you're typing back and forth with a real person, right? That's how I see chat. It's human on both sides. And a chatbot, at least one of the people involved in the conversation is actually not a person. It's some piece of code, some system that's been programmed to understand what you said or try to understand the intent of what you said, and then it does its best job that it can to come back with a response that's sensible.
And why I think it's a tipping point is because natural language processing cost has come so far down. Would you talk a little bit about what that is and what that means? Because it used to be you had to work out every single possible response they'd ever asked. So there's been some real breakthroughs in technology, making it more affordable for high quality and meaningful chatbots.
Sure. So chatbot is not a new thing on the web at all, right? I mean, it's been around for dozens of years, at least a dozen years or more. It's it used to be that you had to write the code to parse the text that the person sent to you. So if you wanted to know if Larry's coffee sells kilo bags anymore, you'd have to write some code that looks for the word kilo specifically. And that's a tedious process to come up with every single thing that someone might say, and it can be confusing, right? Just like search engines, when they're driven towards looking for specific words, they don't catch if you mean not that word, right? So if I'm looking for something to eat, but not Italian food, and the bot's programmed to look for eat and Italian, and it comes back and it says, oh, you should go to Assaggio's Italian restaurant. And I'm like, I said not Italian food, right? So that's the old way of programming them, and that's pretty poor. And like you said, language understanding, natural language processing, right? All these, all these sort of higher end ways of taking the words that someone types or listening to what someone says, and the machine trying to understand the person's intention behind that utterance, right? Behind that thing that they said. And then from that intention, you map intentions onto behaviors that the bot can do. So it's no longer looking for keywords. It's literally trying to understand what the person that the bot is interacting with, what do they want? And then how do you help them get what they want? So the cost of that has gone from enterprise only to small business, and there's a ton of companies now that are trying to put together the the easy button version of a chatbot that anyone can make a decent chatbot.
One more thing I think in content marketing is if you do this correctly, you'll get more information of what your customer wants than
Right.
if you were doing a poll that interrupted them or some other type of trick to get data out of them or a coupon or something else.
Right. Yeah. Nobody likes to fill out forms, right? So nobody's going to come to your site and answer the 5 questions that you want to find out about them, right? And things like Google Analytics are great in that you can track what somebody's doing on your site. But what you can't track is their frustration level. You can't track that they're looking for a thing, but they can't find that thing. So if you go to Cree's website and you're looking for some, specific light bulb that has a certain, certain color quality and it's for home and that kind of thing, and you can't find it, Cree will never know if they just look at their Google Analytics. Right. And they may actually get excited that you spent a lot of time on one page or you came back to one page 3 or 4 or 5 times. But the reality is you just kept accidentally landing on that page and it's not what you wanted. So from their analytics, they did great and this is a wonderful page. From the customer perspective, it's a fail. I'm tired of looking at this wrong product. And it's an opportunity for a chatbot that you can record essentially what people are saying to the bot, what the bot is unable to answer. You can, review conversations later to understand exactly what happened. You can ask people for their information at the right time, and it, doesn't feel like, you're just preventing me from getting the information that I want, and it doesn't feel like you're pushing marketing on me. It feels like, I asked you for a thing, you said you'll send it to me, but you need my email address. So, okay, I'll give you my email address so that you can send me this document, right? That it's just, natural trade-offs in terms of information exchange and what people are willing to, say about themselves and communicate to a company.
The thing I want to talk about is different levels of a chatbot. Really, the early ones had to match the phrase they were asking for directly.
Right.
Or it's just, option 1, 2, and 3. Which do you want?
Right.
Behind door 1, 2, and 3. Would you kind of talk about the different levels up to what we don't have yet, but full self-awareness, and they make us all pets? So we're in between there.
Right. Yeah. So you've got, the phone system is kind of the perfect example of, the operator reads out to you menu choices. For sales, press 1. For customer service, press 2. For parts, press 3, right? And you have to wait to get to 7 to find out that, that's the one that I wanted, or you missed what 2 was because you're listening for some word. And so that menu driven, that's the old approach. It's kind of tired. Most of us are frustrated by that. It can be helpful if you're dealing with a really narrow set of choices. Do you want small, medium, or large? You can show me buttons for that, right? I can sort of pick those 3 up right away, but 12 departments in a company, not so much. So that, that's the simple level. The decision tree thing, I guess you also have the ability to do, kind of a choose your own adventure. So, do you want dark roast or light roast? I want dark roast. Okay. Do you like nutty or fruity? I like fruity. Okay. And sort of pick up information one question at a time and flow towards some destination. The problem with that is that conversations with people just don't go that way, right? I mean, it would be great if, and this is not just it's not an ADD thing, it's just a human thing that we all digress. Right? Like me mentioning ADD is a digression, and I could go really far down that path and then come back to, so did you want nutty or fruity, Martin? Right? And the bot is like, it has to deal with, wait, he just said a bunch of stuff. I don't think that had anything to do with figuring out what coffee he wanted. And so let's steer him back. Right. So that higher level where it's really mapping intent, right? And you decide as the bot programmer, you decide, hey, in the flow of this intent, am I going to allow digression? Am I going to let somebody wander off the path somewhere else? And am I going to let them wander anywhere, or will I only let them wander to places where they're going to come back, right? So if somebody, let's say it's a restaurant, and so we're going to do some kind of real-time booking. So I say, hey, I'd like a table for Wednesday, and the bot understands a table for Wednesday, and it wants to know now how many people and what time. So the bot says, how many people are in your party? Well, so I say, okay, there's 6 of us. So then the bot says, well, what time? And this is pre-COVID, by the way, right?
Right.
For 6 of us to be at a restaurant.
Together at a table, right?
Right. So
big table with just the same.
Yeah, right. 6 feet between us, and so again, another example of digression, and how that works, right? And it's completely natural. So now the bot needs to know what time, but I want to know, when does the live music start?
Mm-hmm.
So before I tell you I want to book my reservation at 7, if the live music doesn't start till 8, I might wait till 8. So as the bot programmer, it's up to me to understand, hey, somebody might want to know some additional information before they answer my question. So I have to hold on to where we were in this thread, answer your other questions, and then gently bring us back. And so so that's that's where we are today, right? That's completely doable with quality bots today, right? You can make a chatbot that does that kind of thing. And then, I think in the future it will be, me telling Alexa to get me a table at my favorite restaurant sometime tomorrow night when the music is playing. And if there's no music tomorrow, Saturday's okay with me, right? Like it'll be that. I'll have a conversation with Alexa. Alexa will have a conversation with some restaurant's bot to work out getting it booked, and then it'll just be on my calendar, and I'll go. And the pet thing, maybe one day they turn the tables, but for now, I think
we're safe for a while.
I think so.
There's another aspect of it that I think is also important, and that is the idea of decision tree versus, is it sentiment analysis, or there are 2 areas where they're still working more on decision tree with limited machine language processing, and then there's also a more complicated advanced system like the Microsoft, the Google, the Watson, and really the Amazon processing system.
Right. So the decision tree piece, you really, you're mapping out a very limited set of things that somebody can answer for you. So if we think about booking a restaurant reservation with decision tree, it's going to be, what day would you like to come? And you could put out the buttons that have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or you could maybe let people type and you'd accept abbreviations, for Sunday. Decision tree is going to struggle if somebody says today, right? What does today mean in terms of where am I? There's time zone differences and all that kind of thing. If they say tomorrow, right, that's an equal sort of challenge in the decision tree world. And then once that part gets answered, the decision tree is going to pop up the next question, and it's going to expect me to answer that question. And it's not going to be flexible for me to leave that part of the conversation. So it's going to say, okay, you want to come tomorrow. I figure out that that's Friday. And then it says, well, what time do you want to come? And again, in my example, I want to find out other information. Decision tree is not going to let me leave the branch of the tree that I'm in. It's going to walk me down a very specific path to get to the end. And that's, that's good enough in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
But then tools like Dialogflow, which is a Google tool, Microsoft Bot Framework, IBM Watson Assistant, right? These are tools that have, much better skills around managing conversations in a way that humans actually talk, so that you can interrupt, you can digress, you can ask for other information that you need before you answer a question that the bot wants you to answer. You can give it some information early in the conversation, and it will remember that information later in the conversation. It never has to ask me for my email twice. In decision tree, if we build 3 different decision tree processes, each of which needs an email, those lower quality bots sometimes won't be able to keep that variable around that I already answered the email question, and it will ask me again. So, there's just a lot of, it's a lot more natural to work with a bot that's built on the professional grade platforms.
Yeah, and it has natural language processing and then really a machine learning network that is going to start getting better as it goes along with your monitoring. And that's, to me, the higher level versions.
Right. So I can say something like, hey, where's my stuff? I don't have to specifically say or type or click the button for order status, right? It knows, hey, where's my stuff? What that means is I'm looking for something that I'm interested in to arrive to me. And what that means is I want to know my order. So using natural language processing, it figures out that the intent is I want to know what's going on with this order that I placed, right? And then, the machine learning side is, as the bot developer, I have to feed it a couple of phrases that you might say that map to order status as my intent. So I say, where's my stuff? I say, what's the deal with my order? Where is my order? Right? I tell it some things.
I didn't get my order.
I didn't get my order is different. That implies it's late, right? There's a problem with my order. That's different than I want my tracking number, right? So you tease out these little details. Then so we have to train it, right? We have to give it some starting points to go on. A really good bot has built in some feedback loops to understand, people say these things, the bot is 40% certain that this is what you mean. And so maybe it decides, it's going to try it, or it's going to ask a clarifying question. Something Watson can do is in cases of ambiguity, it can ask you a clarifying question. Mm-hmm. So it could say, Martin, is your order late, or do you want your tracking, or are you looking for a tracking number, right? Mm-hmm. Like, is there a problem with your order, or did you want your tracking number? Because it wasn't sure, right? And so these are things that decision tree will never be able to do. And then, the more people that use your bot can get trained. And as a developer, I can pay attention to all the misses, and I can code for those. And so, the good ones get much better over time.
Kevin, would you give some examples of everyday chatbots? Because I think it's kind of infusing into our culture, and we don't even realize it.
Sure. So the typical example of a chatbot is text, right? But they work by voice also. So if you think about, and everybody. No, I'm going to say the keyword here, right? Alexa is a perfect example of a chatbot, right? You say her name to wake her up. She's listening all the time, so to speak. And once you pull her into a dialogue, she has to understand. It has to understand. They have to understand what exactly it is you mean by the thing that you say. And something struck me the other day. My mom and I were looking at this really shiny dime, and she asked me, who's on the dime? And I didn't know. And I said, hey, Alexa, who's on a dime? And if you think about it, there's no way somebody would think to program who's on a dime, right? Like that's it's just not a thing a programmer would have come up with, right? But through natural language processing, that can be understood. A dime is a coin. Who's on a thing often means whose face is on a thing. So Alexa is a great example of an everyday sort of chatbot, right? A lot of people in your car have a button. You hold down the button and you can say, make a phone call this number, right? And either the car itself has the brains or it connects to Siri. On my Windows computer here, I've got access to Cortana and all the wonderful stuff through Cortana. A really surprisingly great chatbot experience that I had recently was the North Carolina Department of Motor Vehicles,
Yes,
which,
of all places.
right? I mean,
In
you
fact, that was one
never,
of your talks. You said how many
yeah,
people love to,
right.
interact with the
Raise your hand
DMV.
if DMV is high on your customer service
Yes, which
list, and it's not,
has
right? I mean,
not been in the past. Sorry
right.
if any of the people are listening here. It's just like,
Yeah,
oh
right.
God, I
But
have to deal
I
with
mean,
that.
they're the butt of any joke
Right.
about the issues with bureaucracy, right? And here's an example where, I mean, it was not inexpensive for them to build what they built, but because of the scale, it's a lot more cost effective and a lot more accurate than other ways that they could have done it. Nobody likes to fill out a massive form, and their chatbot makes it feel like you're chatting with someone with a little bit of personality, and before you know it, 10 minutes have gone by and I answered all the questions and it was enjoyable, right?
Mhm.
Versus 7 minutes going by of what feels like grueling agony of another form field to
Mhm.
fill in and another form field. And why do I have to drop down North Carolina? Why doesn't it take NC? Why are they asking me North Carolina? I'm in North, right? Like just, no, none of us like a form field. So I think that was a really good one. Um, Another interesting one, I forget who it was. One of the food service type of
Like a
companies,
DoorDash or something like that.
DoorDash. It may have been them. They sent me the equivalent of a survey in chat style over text message. So I got a text, and it was like, what did you think about our service? Was it good? Yes or no? Yes.
Mhm.
Oh, that's great to know. Uh, what do you think about how fast the delivery was? Was that good? Yes or no? Right. And it's like before you know it, I am, and I'm the kind of guy I don't do surveys, right? It feels like a waste of time. Um, but because it felt conversational, because it was on the device, it was no effort on my part just to type yes back, think about the answer and type it back. So I think that's, it's another good example of it's a data capture tool, but because they did it conversationally, they sort of went under my radar. I didn't feel like I was filling out a form or filling out a survey.
An example I would love is I hate forms with medical systems, everything. I mean,
Ah, yes.
I just had someone I work with that's very helpful said, please fill out this form. I've
Right.
got great relief from them and I almost canceled the event. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's how much I hate it. It's like if I had two doctors and this one was a little bit better, and this one had no forms, I'd probably go to this one. They're the
Yeah.
whole thing. And so, you could set up something to interact with the client that'd be conversational. What a breakthrough
Right.
that would be for a medical system. And of course, as you can set up as much level of security as they want. It costs more
Right.
when you do it, but you could
Sure.
build a whole HEPA compliant interface and have them ask questions, and
Right. Right.
my
Right.
gosh,
Because
that would be like, a fierce competitive advantage, at least for me, to do that. I just ask some questions and it goes down different pipeways and we're done.
right. Yeah, it's no different than building a website, right? It's the same level of security that's available, and it's the same potential issues that are out there. It's right. It's not really much different from a site. It's just the flow is a lot different.
I want to talk a little bit about your process because you create these
Yeah.
systems. We
Yes.
also have taught together,
Right.
as I mentioned, and we teach more of intro, getting them started, understanding fundamentals, things like that. But when you're working with a client, there's a real process of mapping out their world and not pushing yours on, which so many developers do. Would you kind of
Right.
talk about onboarding and working with the client, because you really have to crawl inside their world to us, just
Right.
like you do when you do your coding and development for a system.
Right. Yeah, that's been a really clean translation from general software development to bot development. Is it's all about understanding what the client is actually hoping to accomplish and mapping that with, we have to do a little bit of educating around what's possible, right? So many times, people think of a bot is just a way to gather information from their customers, and it is, but it's not just that, right? So it's helpful for them to hear the different things that it can do, and the educational tools that that a bot can provide for customers, and all those kind of things. So yeah, there's an interview process that we do up front to try to tease out what are all the intents that you think someone could have when they come to your site. And so, all the product related things, those are usually pretty simple. The customer service questions are often, can be a bit more complicated. Some customers want to treat this like a branding exercise as well, right? Because you're interacting with a member of their team, right? So they want the bot to have some level of personality. They want it to be able to ask questions, answer questions like, "Hey, how are you?" And they might want it to ask, "How are you doing today?" Or to say, "Wow, seems like you're really frustrated," right? I mean, you mentioned the sentiment analysis, and that's another high-end skill for a bot, is to understand tone of voice in conversation. And so some clients want to go to that level of calling it out when somebody seems angry, frustrated, and whatnot. So yeah, the process is a big interview up front. Lots of questions that we just ask and have a conversation around what it is that we're trying to accomplish. All of that, of course, gets mapped and handed back to the client to say, does this look like what you wanted? Because usually they haven't thought it through that methodically and that deep. Then from there, we have a list of 10, 20, 100 intents that a visitor might have, and our job is to come up with what are the likely phrases that a person would say in English that maps to those intents, and then how do we map out that flow? At what point do we want to set? Do we want to mention? Would you like someone to reach out to you, or would you like us to transfer you to a person through live chat on Zendesk? Or there's tons of things that we can do, and that's part of the process too, is understanding what's the budget and whether or not we can pull in some additional tools to make this whole thing feel really seamless or not.
Or make it stage one, get up and running, make
Mm-hmm.
money, and then stage two as well.
Right.
I think that's key. And then you have a stage of testing it out, finding some way to prototype, test with, internal people or something else, which I think is important before you turn it on to live customer too.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Right. So we usually, send quite a few messages through the bot to make sure that things flow the way that we would expect them to flow. We don't, there's that crazy example back in the day of, people sort of training a bot to,
like Nazis or something.
Yeah, to be
like
right. That kind of thing was right. That's doable. The bots that we create are not being trained by the visitors themselves, right? So that can't happen in the world in which we're creating bots. That example was a bot that was intentionally being trained by the visitors themselves. So that's not a risk, but the bigger risk is the bot doesn't respond, or the bot misses things that it really should not miss. Yeah, and so we have a QA process at the end of building one that tries to capture those things. And then the other thing is analytics, right? So for forever, for the life of the bot, we're able to tell you things like, what did people say that the bot couldn't answer? Right, and those are really important things to catch. What's frustrating your customers, or what do they want that that you don't realize they want,
or what product they're asking for that you would have never got on the website that you hadn't even thought to offer, or some combination or something. Right. They don't want to get on the phone and feel they're manipulated by some salesperson or something.
Right. They don't want to wait. They don't want to talk to a person because it's time consuming, right? The being on the phone is very unitasking, right? But in a chat, I can be chatting with the bot and in another browser, or chatting with someone else, or checking email while the bot's working something out for me, right? I mean, I think it's a much more natural fit to the way that people work in front of a computer today.
Well, this has been excellent, and all I ask is, if people find it useful, make sure to like, comment, and share. How can people get a hold of you and and find out about your services and availability, because you have different levels you can offer, from a tradesman getting going that just like a plumber wants a simple bot on his site, or an electrician that doesn't want the constant repeated questions asked that disrupts him, or he doesn't get back to and loses business, to full enterprise level. So how do they reach you?
Yeah, I think my email address, kwelsh@welshtechnologies.com. We can probably put that in the description down below. That's the easiest, cleanest way to reach out to me. My website is welshtechnologies.com. You can find more information there.
Excellent. Well, thanks so much for your time. This was great.
Sure thing. Thanks, Martin.